Hello there, Salim Omar here from the Straight Talk About Small Business Success podcast. I am super excited. We've got an amazing guest today who's going to be talking about some financial stuff that's going to be super helpful to business owners and professionals. His name is Matt Del Priore. Matt, welcome.
Thank you, Salim. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I think very highly of you, and I think of you as a financial genius. And so, yeah, really good stuff. I'm super excited about this. Matt, let's start off with you sharing with us your backstory. What brings you here? What brings you to in your profession?
Sure. That's a great question, Salim. And I think back to my dad, who came to this country like you when he was about 12, 13 years old. And he started his business, landscaping business in Queens. And I always wanted to follow in his footsteps. How can I grow my own business, but do it in a way where I can better serve the people around me? And financial planning just tended to be one of those areas that I just took a liking to, not just the numbers, but really figuring out what's important to people and how can I solve their problems. And, fast forward 18 years, it's been a great journey because I, growing my own business, right, face the same challenges and opportunities as other business owners. So to me, it's just a win-win to help other folks in the business community.
Yeah, wow. I didn't realize 18 years, huh? You're at it.
Goes by quick when you're
built
having
an amazing
fun.
business. What's that?
Said it goes by quickly when you're having fun.
Yeah. And you've been really, you work with, a ton of people and really doing good stuff with them, including, clients that I serve in my firm. Let's look at the last year or so. What's been like a consistent theme or concern for the business owners that you're working with?
Sure. That's a great question, Salim. The last few years have certainly been a challenge for a lot of business owners. On the other hand, it might have been a great time for a lot of business owners. No matter what has happened, the common theme that I've been really consulting and helping business owners is, the compensation and benefits planning. And specifically, how do businesses today come up with ways, right, to attract, reward, and retain their top talent?
Yeah. So that's been an issue across so many industries, right? Is how do we attract talent? And there's like a shortage of labor, right? I mean, the pandemic and the post-pandemic era, it's like, where are the good people? And we want to, not only, if somebody's looking to grow their business, and many people are, they're looking to scale the business, they need that talent. And then we need to keep the talent that we have, right? So that's become really a challenge. I've heard that over and over again. What are some strategies that you guys have been, your team, you've been able to implement with clients that are looking to hire and that are looking to keep good talent?
Sure. Another great question. First, start with, it really depends on where you are in your business life cycle. Personally, I like to break up business to between 4 different stages. You have your startup businesses, you have your growth businesses, you have your businesses that are more mature, and then you have your businesses that are transferring, are looking to exit. And I think depending on where you are in your business life cycle, really depends on, or will sort of help dictate what strategies are more important or more feasible for Mr. or Mrs. business owner today. For example, startup businesses typically don't have the capital to implement retirement plans or healthcare benefits because that's a major drag on cash flow, which is really needed in the beginning of your business. While other growth businesses, right, their engine's running, they're growing, cash flow's coming in. So they might be able to offer these types of benefits due to their scale, their scale, their size, or their budget.
Got it. Right. Give us a couple examples. What could, in what you just shared?
Sure, absolutely. I actually have 2 examples that come to mind. They're cases I'm currently working on or have been working on recently. The first is a more mature business. It's a 3rd generation family hospitality business. These are folks who are running hotels up in the Lake Placid area. And, for them, they were trying to figure out, how do we come up with an equitable compensation structure for those active family members in the business while not diluting equity to the other owners who may be less active in the business. And it took us about 4 or 5 meetings to come up with these solutions because it really comes down to really good listening. I want to understand, what's happened in the past. Why do your shareholder agreements have certain language in place, right? What was the thinking behind that? Are you open to things like that changing or adapting? So we spent a lot of time in that first couple of meetings understanding the business, the operations, the history, the culture, and eventually came back to solutions that allowed for increases in salary, ownership structure that allowed for active members to eventually get more equity over time, and have come up with solutions that for those who are retiring in the business, coming up with a certain percentage of shares that scale down over time, purchased by existing family members, so that this way the retirees have some cash flow they can, rely on during that transition, but also keep a stake in the business that they've worked so hard over their lives. And so it's been a real interesting case because, we're looking at multi generations. Everyone has different needs. And so that one, we didn't really come up with any financial products per se. It was more the changing the shareholder agreements, amending them to making the changes that they saw fit, finding opportunities to make it a little bit more ironclad and less subjective, because there's going to be a fourth generation that enters this business. There eventually may be a fifth generation. So maintaining flexibility in the shareholder agreement, but also providing a lot more structure around what can and cannot happen based on the rules that we've all come to together, right? We made suggestions. We didn't say, these are the only options. And that collaborative approach really helped all the family members come away with a clear and concise game plan that everyone was happy about.
That's a great success story. So question relating to what you shared, what happens, and this was a great solution that you provided to your team, with your team that you provided to this client. What happens like in a general scenario when there isn't a solution like this? If you were not to help the client, what would be the outcome, the consequences of that?
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, there could be a lot of consequences, both, unintended as well as intended, right? So you could have disagreement amongst all the shareholders, which can eventually create animosity amongst, the workplace. Who's getting more, who's doing less, so I think the intangible aspect of that brought a lot of value to make sure that everyone's happy with, how they're being compensated and what it's being, why they're being compensated for. And I think other, issues can arise, from an estate planning perspective, right? You might have family members in the business who will never be active. How do we ensure that those family members are treated equitably amongst their siblings should they decide not to get into the business? And so having those conversations, really were valuable to the overall estate and succession plan of the business.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like quite a complex situation with multiple parties from an ownership standpoint or leadership standpoint, and really creating an equitable plan through communication and listening and talking and saying, hey, and everyone coming on the table really, and clarifying roles and responsibilities and compensation and equity and so forth.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was a fun case to work through. And, we just behave like consultants, right? We're in the middle. We first have to understand where they are, what's important to them, then eventually come to the solution. So that process, even though it took multiple meetings, ended in a very favorable result for the organization we're working with.
Yeah.
It also reminds me of another firm we're working with in a similar fashion, not as large in scale. We have 3 gentlemen who are executive recruiters, and, they came to us with a similar issue. We're looking to bring on more partners. We're looking to bring on, someone who's on our level from a perspective of, recruiting talent and doing a lot of the ongoing activity. And so they said, well, let's look at what can we offer to this new employee that allows them to feel like they're having ownership, but not necessarily give away actual ownership. And along with that, we looked at not only, okay, let's figure out that idea, but what's currently in place, right? They had a 401k with profit sharing. They have fully paid health insurance, disability plans. So not only let's figure out, is what you're offering, the right package? Are there ways to reduce costs, use a PEO or some type of service to hopefully streamline some of those items to make it more cost effective? And then it will obviously increase cash flow for the business. But what can we do to create some ownership-like feel, give this person who's coming in, that sort of carrot, if you will, but not give away any equity ownership? And to really just fast forward, we came up with ideas like creating a deferred compensation plan that may not even have to be funded. This deferred compensation plan under Section 409A of the Revenue Code can allow this organization to give away equity once the business is sold, right? And so we're revising the shareholder agreement. So this way, this person has skin in the game on the back end. And should they want to fund it, there are ways to certainly do that along the way. And just aside, this firm, we've also helped them put together buy-sell agreements throughout our engagement. This happens to be, a client we've had for a while. And so it wasn't just this issue we saw for them in the past, with 3 partners. If one passes away, that's business interruption, number 1. But number 2, now that partner's family owns shares of the business. And that individual has no ability to manage, those shares or run the business. So the buy-sell agreement serves as a mechanism to buy out the shares from that potential deceased partner, let the operation continue without any interruption, and everyone is made whole. So that was a great, that's been a great journey with these clients. It's not just solving issues today, but positioning ideas for the future. And ultimately, what these things do, not only provide nice, peace of mind for the organization, but it increases the value of the business, right? If I'm an outside buyer and I'm looking in and I'm like, well, I want to acquire your firm, the more systems, processes that are in place, the more things that I know can run smoothly if the, unintended happens, that makes your value in the business a lot more attractive. So we've been able to increase the value of this business just by some of these planning techniques that many businesses may have not thought of, or perhaps are just not at the right stage.
Yeah. Wow, such great advice. And really for the small business owner, the 3-person firm, the hospitality business, we're owner kind of operators, and we're busy running the business and scaling it and growing it, and we're not thinking about these things. And so it requires, you guys, you do this, you've been doing it for 18 years and you've kind of, vested in what you're doing. So you bring that outside perspective and that expertise, which is invaluable because, you just shared a ton of ideas right now in how you help this business. And ultimately it's, and one of the big benefits or side benefits is the valuation of the business increases besides peace of mind and so forth. They're keeping everything, great, keeping things in harmony where people they're working it with their heart because it's equitable to them. They've been heard. There's a plan that entertains or, that helps them, that rewards them for their effort.
Absolutely. And now hitting on a key point there, Salim, so often, and probably you and I are guilty of this, we work in the business, right? We have our blinders on, we're working in the business, doing what we do best, but we seldom create time to work on the business, right? So, whether you're looking at strategy like this or not, it's always good to carve out some time during your week or your month to look at the business, right? What's working, what's not working, what are the gaps, right? How can I improve on certain systems or the intangibles? So, great point you bring up.
Yeah, and I think that's important. The working on it is important, the reflection, the stepping back and say, hey, what's working, what's not, like you just pointed out. But the other thing, Matt, that I've seen in being in business for 20 some years is surrounding yourself with the right team, the right people, the right advisors, the right coaches. And I've kind of, thankfully, I understood that early in my career as a business owner. And that was one of the things that I would always do is find the right people as advisors, as mentors, that bring that outside perspective that I would not know. And every business owner every entrepreneur has got blind spots, like the things we don't see right behind on the side of our ear. And when you're working with somebody who's got expertise in a certain area, they can kind of give us that visibility, which can really save us a lot of heartache and trouble and money in the long run or the short run.
Without a doubt. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you gave us a couple of really good examples with established companies, the things you guys were able to do and, how that all worked. What about startups? People that don't have, the capital to implement benefit programs or increase compensation. What's the solution for them to recruit, hire, retain good talent?
Sure. No, that's a challenge, right? You don't have the cash flow, but you still want to feel people, are a part of something. I think, two things come to mind before I share those two things. I think one thing that's always critical is, sharing your vision with your, employees in the workforce, right? So that everyone is working toward the common goal, or everyone at least understands what is the leader working towards, to make sure that everyone is also, working towards the same end result. For us, the two things that come to mind are, one, education in the workplace. So for example, we personally will offer a lot of our business owner clients advice around just, hey, we'll create some workshops centered around proper budgeting, right? Or saving for retirement, or, education planning, things that can bring value to the organization that doesn't really cost you much or cost you anything at all. It's about advice. It's about, hey, we're offering this benefit because studies have found that financially, if you're less stressed, you're going to be more productive at work. You're going to be less worried about what's going on at home or what bills you might have to pay. And so from our perspective, we've offered financial literacy programs so that, people are at least getting advice as to what they can do personally to empower themselves. And it doesn't have to be financial advice. It could be, healthcare advice. I remember there was, at the height of COVID, we had someone come in and do a presentation on, how to properly wash your hands. It sounded silly, but it was, it was fun. It was interactive and people joined. Little things like that go a long way. And the second thing is, creating team building or team experiences, right? Culture is so important to your employees. They want a sense of belonging. So, sharing successes, celebrating wins, taking them out to a breakfast, or, sending them something when certain, benchmarks have been hit. It may not cost nothing, but it's a little something that goes a long way, right? And if you're actively listening, someone, the example I remember is on my team, Jamie had sent my partner, Charles, a t-shirt with like a rock t-shirt. He plays the guitar. It showed that she's listening, and it was a personal gift that didn't cost her much, but went a long way just from an appreciation perspective. So, be in tune with what people are doing, what they like, and try to lean into that. Those little things can go a long way.
Yeah, that's great, man. Two really practical examples that don't require too much money, if any money, right? Listening doesn't require any money, active listening. That's great. This has been so good. A ton of valuable advice that you've shared with us. We're coming to the tail end. I want to ask you, what's the best way for someone listening to this? What's the best way for them to reach out to you if they want to have a conversation? And then before we go there, let me ask you this question. Is there any final words of wisdom, advice that comes to mind as we were having this discussion that inspired you to kind of share a minute or less some words of wisdom?
Yeah, I think it's just, you have to take action. We're all business owners. We're running 100 miles an hour. We're focused on what's in front of us, but just really take a step back and remember, you got into business to serve the community and those around you, but also yourself and your family, right? So understand, the importance of how this business relates to your personal situation, and really make sure that, they're intertwined. You're looking at both aspects at the same time because, they play a very important role with one another.
Got it. Awesome. Great words of wisdom. Thanks so much, Matt. What's the best way for someone to reach out to you?
Sure. You can go to the website, fortislux.com, or my email, mdelpriori@fortislux.com. I'm sure that information will be shared. And it really starts with a conversation, right? When we have a conversation with a client, it's all about learning what's important to you. What are your goals, your values, your objectives, right? Then from there, we can figure out how can we be of best service, because everyone's situations and circumstances are different. So we have a conversation and then we lead you from there.
Awesome. Great. Matt, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Salim. Thanks for having me and look forward to more of these.
Awesome.
Take care.